And when I look back, he's like, he looks done.
What you worry about? Hey, you should use some.
You check on the radio?
So they're gonna have to, you know what I mean?
Well, let's say they're going to your back, you know,
Good afternoon, Vicky Cavazos Jones, Spanish interpreter.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you.
He has his own call sign, does it make a difference?
Good afternoon. The Board of Commissioners or its committee may hold a closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code 551071 for consultation concerning attorney-client matters, real estate, litigation, personnel, and security matters. The board or committee reserves the right to enter into closed meeting at any time during the course of the meeting. Now we're ready for public comment.
Roll call.
Hello and welcome to Opportunity Homes San Antonio's regular board meeting. A few reminders before we begin. Please note this meeting will be recorded in its entirety for the record.
Recording in progress.
Please use the microphone on your screen to mute and unmute. If using a phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute. Captions have been enabled for this meeting. To modify your preferences, select Captions in the meeting controls at the bottom of your Zoom window. I will now conduct Commissioner roll call. Chairwoman Dr. Ana Cha Guzman.
Present.
Vice Chair Gabriel Lopez.
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert Casillas.
Present.
Commissioner Dalia Contreras. Commissioner Lauren D. Dantzler.
In the flesh.
Commissioner Olga Kaufman.
Present.
Commissioner Ignacio Perez. Doug Ponick, Board of Commissioners Attorney.
I'm here.
President and CEO Ed Hinojosa Jr.
Present.
And Vicky Cavazos Jones, our interpreter for the day.
Present.
You may now call the meeting to order. Thank you.
I already have. We're ready for public comment.
There are no individuals signed up for public comment.
Are there citizens to be heard?
Yes, we have 3 individuals signed up for citizens to be heard. The first is Diane Bowers.
Diane, are you here? Come on up to the, so we can hear you. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments.
Is there a timer?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. I am a resident at the Villa Francesi Public Housing, and my concerns are security. I've only been a resident there for a year and a month, and I've seen the escalation of property damage and just lawlessness. So when I first got there, the first few months were kind of scary, but you get used to it. You get used to the pulled fire alarms and the door knockings and the doorbell ringings and whatnot. But a few months in, I could say about 4 or 6 months in, they started construction. So with construction, which was a welcome, they had security. And at first it was just security from 8 to 5. And so we really didn't see a de-escalation of the lawlessness. But once they started having security like 24/5, it got better. There was a less stressful situations and lawlessness started slowing down. But when we've got 24/7. It was like a whole new world. Residents were able to move about freely. There was just a sense of peace, in a sense. But now, last week, even a week, last week we went from full semi-security, where security personnel were present. And they were able to to let people know they didn't have a code card, or they weren't a resident, or they didn't have like appointments. They were stopped at the door. But now, last week, we were told we were going to go into a fire watch mode, which meant that security was stripped of asking people who they were, or not letting people come in. And it was like, I was shocked. It was like, because the fire watch mode is strictly for them to be facing the elevator, which, by the way, elevators never did anything to us. They were just slower and, took their time, but there was no harm from them. To all they were there for was to watch the elevator, for fire watching. It was shocking. I was speechless, because it's like, what? They're not even allowed to take down reports or anything. We have to go back to asking for SAPD to come in, which, by the way, in itself, it's a problem, because they have no access after hours. So if you get called, or because I've called them, and I was told, well, can you meet us down in the lobby? And I'm like, I'm on the 7th floor, and then how am I going to? It was just crazy. But this is what I'm here. If they could have the budget to where we could have some sort of security and not just fire watch. And thank you for your time. And again, I'd like to stress that we have no problems with the elevators other than, dysfunctioning, but it's not just the tenants, but the people that just are able to come in and out of public housing. And by the way, I had a bird's eye view, because I went from private housing to public housing, and it was just crazy. Again, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm not disgruntled tenant. I'm very happy where I am, because they have very much socially, they have stuff there that's beneficial to a lot of tenants. Again, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
The next speaker is James Hamilton.
Yeah, I'm here to cover an issue, but I would say first that there's problems with at Fair Avenue, that the maintenance do not give them notice before they go in apartments. But what I have to say is, I'm a content creator. My name is James Hamilton. I'm at Lewis Chatham Apartments. I'm a content creator, one of the few content creators on Facebook and other social media here in Opportunity Home. I had a problem with one of my posts being scrutinized by Mr. Tobar here. And we had emails back and forth about 2 or 3 times about my content, saying it was bullying. I resolved that with him, hopefully, this morning. And then I get on Facebook, and I was told I was removed from the Facebook Reels monetization program. And I personally believe that because a resident reported my content, just went to my Facebook, did a screenshot, reported it, and with the help of Mr. Tobar here, that I'm no longer a Facebook content creator. I had a lot of issues dealing with Opportunity Home. Now, I'm not a disgruntled resident, because a lot of things I try to do was to help the community, like be resident council president, that because a bunch of racists down there at Lewis Chatham voted us out, made a lot of people angry, and made false allegations and stuff like that. Mr. Tobar's department provided them the tools to do everything that they did. Now, how many things are they going to take from me? I'm no longer a content creator. I didn't get elected on the resident council. I applied for Connect Home and got to run around for that because a resident sending emails to the director of Connect Home, and they decided to pull the program without telling me. And I need to know what needs to be done with this board for anybody to investigate what's happening here, right? I don't want to run around. I don't want to receive a runaround. I want a response, because we've been coming here for years and haven't got a response or haven't got an investigation or anything. And I understand y'all can't speak right now because of whatever laws is in place, but y'all got the resources to make them do some type of investigation of what's going on here and hold some people accountable. Thank you.
The next citizen to speak is Maureen Galindo.
Hello, Maureen Galindo. I am a tenant at Refugio Place and an organizer with San Antonio Tenants Union. I don't really like actually coming here because I don't think that this board represents anyone except business interests. But then one of our organizers was retaliated against recently and having his housing threatened with lease violations and having his finances impacted for our work. This was due to an anti-bullying policy that was supposed to address issues that we had, our tenants union. When it came about, though, I had two issues with it. One, it wasn't created with tenants. This is a big issue. You can't create a policy without tenants and it work. Number two is that I said it was going to be used against us. And here it is, and it has. Saha has this worsening reputation across the state now. It's struggling to get funds, right, for fear of these bad deals. People are scared to give Saha funds because they're scared it's going to go to bad deals. Stop making bad deals. We were given information that a lot of these bad deals that go through you guys, right, ones that don't benefit tenants at all, but instead business interests, that there's not much you guys can do about them because it was before this CEO's time. Then what are you here for? If I were you, I would be like, why am I here then? Just a rubber stamp committee? I would ask those questions of myself. I know that there was rules changed, and if hypothetically speaking, I got this position on the board because my husband was friends with the mayor, I might create these rules too of not naming names, but I won't stop naming names. If I can't say them here, I'll say them to the city and to the county and to the state. Timothy Alcott continues to make these bad deals that you guys just push through. I know you changed the name from San Antonio Housing Authority because authority sounded too bad. I'm a mother of 3 kids. I'm a single mother of 3 kids. My kids need authority. Authority is not a bad thing. Authority means that you inherently have the power, and with that comes responsibility. If somebody was coming to threaten my kids, I would remove that person. If somebody is threatening all of the tenants of San Antonio that you guys are in charge of in public housing, get rid of them. Get rid of the disease so that you can start taking care of the tenants. Here we have all of these people coming in and they don't get any issues dealt with. And now I bet the rest of this session is going to be business deals. It's not going to be about tenants. It never has been. And until this board changes, it never will.
Is that all the citizens to be heard?
Yes, that concludes citizens to be heard.
Let's go on to public hearings regarding proposed Rosemont at University Park low-income housing tax credit project and the issuance of the Las Varas Public Facility Corporation Series 2023 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $35 million. Timothy?
You're in the flesh. But this is a public hearing, and we have 2 of them. One is for Fiesta Trails, and the other one's for Rosemont University Park. So anytime that we issue bonds or is government debt, we have a public hearing, you allow people to comment. And so we're going to open up the floor if there's any specific comments. People can make them if anyone's signed up. I don't think there was anyone that signed up, so it's
No
pretty
one
short.
signed up online.
And so that's all I need is just be able to have that public hearing. But both these have gone to the board. As you know, the Fiesta Trails is a deeply affordable complex. It's a 9% tax credit deal, and so it is serving the poorest of the poor as a 9% deal. And Rosemont University Park is another development that was hitting year 15 is a tax credit deal, so we re-syndicated the bond. So both these have gone to the board before this board, and you have approved them, but we just need to have time for a short hearing.
And how many apartments will be built in Rosemont? Do you have that?
So it's already built, that one. So
Okay.
it's an older complex. They're just going to rehab it to make it
Rehab
better.
it, okay.
Yeah, but it's 240 units. So it's just they're putting bonds out to rehab the units.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
But there's like,
Oh,
it's just a public hearing, so I think that's all we need.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
You want to go on with Fiesta Trails? The next
Oh,
one?
I'm sorry. Yeah. So Fiesta Trails is a public hearing just like the last one. That's the one that's a 9% tax credit, and they have some at 30% AMI, some at 50%, 60% AMI. But again, it's just a public hearing, and the board has previously approved this. These are the very competitive ones that we go through, and we're very fortunate that the city's supporting this one as well because they gave us bond funding to make sure this wing is financeable with a lower affordability. So. There's no comments, then we can close the public hearing for that one as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we go on to the minutes, the approval for April 3rd and April 19th. Do I hear a motion?
I motion we approve the meeting minutes.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Minutes passed. We'll go on to the consent items, 7 through 9.
I make a motion that we approve consent items 7, 8, and 9 as written.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Do I hear, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Consent items passed. We'll go on to the individual items. Number 10, consideration and approval regarding Resolution 6349, authorizing the expenditure of additional funds for waste disposal and recycling services to Waste Management of Texas.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. George Ayala for the record. Today we're here to ask for your consideration and approval for the additional expenditure of funds for waste management services. Just a little bit of background. On April 1st, 2021, Resolution 6124 was authorized, awarding the contract to waste disposal and recycling services to Waste Management of Texas Incorporated for a period of 1 year with the option to renew for up to 4 additional 1-year terms. At this point, staff is recommending an increase to the award amount for 10% for the period of April 23rd, 2023 through April 23rd, 2024, which is the second-year renewal option, and allowed for the increase to the annual amounts for this service for the remaining 2 years under this award. The increases will be tied to the following consumer price indices: CPI for garbage and trash collection services, CPI water and sewer and trash collection services, EIA natural gas price index. One of the things that I would like to point out is that whenever we received the request for an increase in our pricing from Waste Management, that increase was at a 12.59%. And we were able to negotiate, due to our relationship with Waste Management, to a 10% price index increase.
And why are they increasing it?
Because of the cost of fuel, ma'am, the cost of their operational cost. So that's why they're increasing, and it's based on the, like I mentioned, the price indexes that the industry has.
Thank you.
Is this also going to take care of the issues that we have on some properties with the overflowing of trash or not having enough receptacles that the residents can put their trash in a clean and safe manner?
Yes, sir. So we do have the pricing for those available corrals or units that we have on the properties. Well, one of the things that we actually do is work with our property managers to look at the need. So we could allocate more service times. So instead of coming in for 2 times a week, we actually have pricing for 3 and 4 times a week, or maybe in some cases we do have the option of getting bigger bins that we can accommodate the need of our residents.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
In many cases, yes, like George said. And in some cases, there are limitations of what we can do in terms of spacing for the, there's also the overflow a lot of times has to do with kids who are taking out the trash and they'll just throw them there. So we've looked at bins that have maybe the side openings to make it easier to dispose of them. But generally, yes, this vendor has been very amenable to any changes that we've requested in terms of frequency of pickup and other changes we've requested in response to resident needs.
Yeah, I would just add to that point, just maybe it's incumbent upon our teams, which they probably already do, but just to verify, because I know over the weekends, like you said, we can't control how it's being thrown away, or if non-residents are coming in and using our bins.
Yeah, we're a target for illegal dumping, definitely,
Right.
yeah.
So just keep an eye on it. But
Yeah. So short answer is yes, they're open to working with us, which they have been, and we are constantly keeping an eye and trying to adjust as things change out on property.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I mentioned before about the nature of things being dumped in the dumpsters as well. That like the supplies used for mate readies and things like that. I've seen a lot of that, so that takes up a lot of space.
Yeah, we've gotten concerns from you as well as others about what our make-ready vendors are doing out there, the level of supervision, and what they're doing. And so we are constantly trying to improve our management of vendors, holding them accountable, and through vendor comments that we get from site staff, reporting that back up to procurement. So as contracts are up for renewal, we know whether or not we want to pursue business with that vendor.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. On to item 11.
Need a motion.
Pardon?
Need a motion.
Oh, is there a motion to accept Resolution 6349?
I'll make the motion to accept or to pass Resolution 6349.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Motion passes. Onwards to 11, consideration of Resolution 6320. And it's not Diane. Who's at the?
Stranger.
Either she has
No, this is
grown
my
a
first.
beard.
This is my first board meeting. I attended the finance committee, so I know I've presented in front of a few of you, but not all of you yet. My name's Aaron Sladek. I'm working on a class right now as the assistant director of finance and accounting. So at that finance committee back in March, our independent auditors were here to present the status of our 2022 audit report. They're here again today to provide the final results of that. At that time in March, we were at the tail end of completion of the audit, and we were really just putting forth our best efforts to get that completed and submitted on time. Deadline was March 31st, and I'm pleased to announce that we were able to get that submitted on time. There were 2 major challenges for the 2022 audit. The first was that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board put out a new pronouncement, statement number 87 on leases. And that was a pretty significant accounting standard. It required us to work with an outside accounting firm, Clifton Larson Allen, and they were able to help us implement that. So it was a months-long project. I had weekly meetings with them to go over all the lease contracts and record those transactions on our books. And you'll actually see the impact of that at the next Finance Committee when we present our financial report. There's a pretty big movement of numbers. So we'll go into detail later this month on that. The other major challenge was that the deadline was normalized for the reporting. So for 2020 and 2021, HUD had actually extended the deadline by 6 months. They had recognized that due to COVID, there was a lot of staffing shortages, not just at public housing authorities, but at HUD, their agency itself. So all parties kind of needed some relief in order to get all the reporting done. So, of course, for 2022, that deadline was pushed back to the normal. So each PHA typically, they have 9 months after fiscal year end. So for our June 30th fiscal year end, we have until March. So since that was normalized for 2022, we really had to work at a brisker pace in order to have that completed on time. The good news is that the auditors are not just here to present today, but they've started interim fieldwork, so they're doing the compliance testing right now. So we're ahead of schedule because the last 2 years they weren't able to start the engagement until end of July, early August. But it's nice that they're already here and they're doing their testing for the compliance because it's both the financial and compliance audit. So they're doing the compliance piece of it right now. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Eric Rumberger. He's the partner with Cohen Resnick.
Thank you, Aaron. And as Aaron mentioned, we're here to talk about the audited financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2022. And I have with me Chelsea Glass, who is our audit manager over the engagement, and Jimmy Morris over there. He's our staff associate that's working with us currently on the field work for the compliance for the 2023 audit. And we also have our subcontractors, Garza Gonzalez Associates, our local presence that they do a ton of work. We couldn't get this audit done without them, our local boots on the ground to help get through the compliance and controls. Okay. So here is our brief agenda. We'll go over some audit comments, our plan and results, also discuss with you our required communications under our professional standards, and then discuss recent accounting updates. So Opportunity Home is a quasi-governmental agency in receipt of significant federal funding, so you're actually subject to 3 different sets of accounting standards, and therefore that results in 3 different audit reports from us, which we'll talk about in more detail in the following slides. The first is auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, generally accepted government auditing standards, and auditing standards required by the Uniform Guidance. And the good news, all 3 reports are unmodified opinions or clean reports. There were no deficiencies in internal controls or any non-compliance issues or other matters to be reported. So our first report is our independent auditor's report under generally accepted auditing standards. That is our opinion on the financial statements themselves and the footnotes and disclosures. So we do provide an opinion saying that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects, which is a clean or unmodified report. And 2 important things to note in the auditor's report. First is we do not audit the pension plan. Those are audited by other auditors, so we do call that out in the financial statements. So insofar as those amounts are presented in your annual financial statements, those are audited by other auditors. And there's also audited and unaudited components to the financial statements. So our different paragraphs in there call out the management's discussion and analysis is unaudited. We do limited procedures on the MD&A, but that's management's time to discuss the status of the agency and everything that's going on. So we don't provide an opinion over the MD&A, and there's other parts in the financial statements that we do provide an opinion, which were also unmodified or a clean report. The second report is our report on government auditing standards, and this is on our consideration of internal control over financial reporting. So this is the controls that are in place of the agency to make sure that the amounts in the financial statements are correct and fairly presented. And if there were any issues that we found in internal control as we're going through our audit, we would report what those issues were. We do not provide an opinion on the effectiveness of controls. Rather, if there were any issues or non-compliance that relates to financial statement amounts, we would report those. And we're pleased to report there were no items that were reported in this opinion or in this financial report. And the final is our independent auditor's report under uniform guidance. This is over your federal funds. So this is on compliance and internal controls over the use and expenditure of those federal funds. So we do provide an opinion with compliance, and it was an unmodified opinion. So we say that Opportunity Home complied in all material specs with the federal programs. There were 3 major federal programs that we were required to test this year. The first being the MTW program, and the second is the Housing Voucher Cluster, which covers the vouchers and mainstream vouchers that are not part of the MTW cluster. So there were no internal control deficiencies over any of those programs required to be reported either. Management and staff, as always, extremely cooperative, very well prepared, very well together. Diana and Aaron and their teams are fantastic to work with. We really enjoy working with them. We do some other services outside of the audit as part of our normal services, which none of those would impair our independence. So independent auditors report right there on the opinions is a very important part. And serving as your audit firm of choice is a pleasure and honor. We see the good that you do in your community, and that's one of the reasons we focus on the affordable housing industry. We recognize the importance and see that, and so we're very proud to work with you all. So high level on our audit plan and results, this is just to summarize some of the big key areas that we did work with personnel, walking through all of our documentation of systems and controls and key areas. Again, can't hear it enough, there were no internal control deficiencies that we noted to report to you. We also hold fraud discussion with key management and operating personnel, and just want to report there were no instances of fraud or other significant areas that they brought to our attention to focus on. And we test all of our key major balance sheet items, including capital assets, as such a significant component of what you do, all the acquisitions, disposals. We test those, as well as all of the program revenues and expenses. We do also issue separate reports for several of the other entities, including the Facility Corporation, Sendero, Spring Hill, Cortland Heights, Woodhill Public Facility Corporation, and Converse Ranch. And each of those reports was completed timely and unmodified, clean opinions, no issues to be reported on each of those. And once again, the pension plan, those amounts are audited by other auditors, so not covered by us. We audit the financial data submission, which is the report format that you're required to submit to HUD and your financial statements in their very prescribed format, as well as the CFA, the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. And so we do provide opinions on each of those. So then in required communication, so our professional standards as auditors, there are several things we're required to communicate to those charged with governance, which is you, the board. The first is that our responsibility is to provide an opinion on the financial statements, which, as we said, is an unmodified or clean opinion. And we also plan and perform our audit to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance. We are testing on a sample basis and looking at certain items, but not reperforming every single item. So it is reasonable assurance that there's no misstatements. And then we also consider internal control, but again, not providing an opinion on the effectiveness of controls. There were no transactions entered into by the agency for which there's a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. So we call this accounting gray areas. If there's new or different transactions entered into the year, if there's a choice between accounting treatment, we would report those to you just so that you're aware. We had no disagreements or difficulties with management, and there were no consultations with other accountants as part of the audit or financial statements. It's not uncommon in the industry that management could go out and talk to other accountants on a particular tricky or sensitive accounting financial reporting matter to come back to us and use that to discuss. If that were to happen, we would present that to you and let you know about that, but no such consultations occurred to our knowledge. And then accounting estimates that are significant, the allowance for doubtful accounts, collectability of receivables, and the useful lives of capital assets. Also, as a result of our procedures, we noted no items that needed to require adjustment. So if we're testing items and propose adjustments to management to say there's a significant change that needs to be made, we would bring that to your attention. But there were no audit adjustments that were required as a result of our procedures. And on to the very exciting part of the show, the new accounting updates. As Aaron mentioned, GASB 87 leases was the big one this year. That was a significant a lift with all of the leasing activity that you do. So this really goes in governmental standards more towards public or for-profit entities, how they're reporting for leases. So this covers both the lessee and the lessor side. So when you're acquiring assets for use, you will be required to recognize a right of use asset and a liability for the amount of payments you would recognize out over time. Not so much of that impacting you guys, but you're more on the side where you own assets that you're leasing to other entities to use. And in that case, you recognize those big, large upfront payments that you get when you receive the cash in. And it's what's called a deferred inflow or an unrecognized revenue that gets recognized over time of that 50 to 99 year lease. That income gets normalized over that entire period. And there are a couple, not many, but there are a few where if you have annual payments, significant annual payments, you have to recognize a receivable for the entirety that's expected to be received. That's discounted using a discount rate to that net present value of the receivable that you're going to recognize over time. So as the cash comes in, it reduces that receivable, and then also you have the income over time associated with that. So notes 1S and note 4 highlight those changes for the GASB 87. And then GASB number 96, that one is coming up for 2023. That is subscription-based information technology arrangements. It is a mouthful, I know. I call them SBITAs or SBITAs. That's up for debate how you want to pronounce that acronym. But that's very, very similar to leases, but that's for information technology arrangements that are longer than a year. So gone are the days where you go out and buy software and it's yours for life. It's almost always cloud-based arrangements with annual renewal terms. But same thing there. If you have a long-term arrangement, you would recognize an asset over that entire term of that arrangement, and you would amortize the expense over time. And then GASB 101, compensated absences. Good news on this one, that's not effective until fiscal year 2025, so there is some time on that one. That really seeks to standardize the different types of leave offered, so if that's family leave, jury duty leave, military leave, all of those different types of leave, when do you recognize a liability for those? So that really standardizes those and simplifies the disclosure related to those. Again, not effective until 2025 though. And here's our contact information, and that covers everything we were going to discuss. So if there's any questions or items you'd like to discuss, I'm happy to answer those.
Nice job on having a clear audit.
Congratulations.
Especially on something as complicated as
ours.
TW.
Diana, thank you for being on your best behavior.
Doing hard.
You don't have to keep her in line. She's already in line.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been an approval and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, same sign. Motion passes. So now we're on to discussion items. Do we have any discussion?
On the president's report, I would like, on the discussion regarding resident
Excuse
concerns.
me, sir.
I'd like to mention.
Excuse me, sir.
Mr. Castillo's.
I'd like to go to resident concerns first.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to Number one, I'd like to request that next meeting, we have 2 items on our closed session agenda. Number one, to discuss the issues that Mr. Chapman brought up. I'd like a report from Joel and on the accusations that are being made. I want to make sure that we are not violating his First Amendment rights on what he posts or anything like that, and if we're violating any of our residents' rights. So if we can get a report on that in closed session. Also, I would like to ask, and also speaking with our vice chair, to have a cost analysis for security on what we're looking at, what it would cost. And also, I would like to recommend that a lot of residents don't understand what fire watch is. And it's not just watching the elevators. I know that. You know, they monitor all the floors, they watch because the fire alarms aren't working, and they walk the floors to make sure there's no fires, no smoke or anything, to be able to, if there is by chance a fire, then they're able to notify the residents by knocking on doors on the floors and everything. So I feel sometimes they don't understand what a fire watch is, and as the resident came and told us that they just sit there and watch the elevators, and I know it's more than that, but you know, it's sad that that's what they think it is, and so maybe we should educate our residents when we have issues like that. I think Brandy wants to say something to that.
I think Brandy's going to mention about the fire watch and also Mr. Hamilton's concerns that he's also raised with HUD, and he's raised them with us over the years. I do want to also mention in security, and we'll put the items on the agenda as you requested, Commissioner. We've recently polled our residents about whether they feel safe. And a large, very large percentage, and you know, we've talked about it, say that they feel safe. And those that don't feel safe, we ask them, what would you need in order to feel safe? And by far, the biggest response is more lighting on the property. And it's not cameras, it's not security guards, and of course, there are people that feel differently. So we'll put all of that into context when we come back and for the operations committee and review the data we have where we polled residents, and also the action steps we're taking, because we have been spending time and money on improving the lighting at all of our properties. And so I just wanted to mention that as well, and we'll put the items on the agenda.
I just want to make sure that residents aren't feeling that us as a board, and especially me myself, my concern is the residents and residents' concerns and what happens on the properties. And me as a resident, I don't know how any of my colleagues here feel, but I don't like being told that we don't care about them, because I do. And as you all know, I'm very vocal about it. So, and I wish some of the other people would stick around a little bit further on the meetings and see what we actually do, instead of, you know, through hearsay that we don't care, don't do anything. You know, the deals that we make are deals to be able to add more housing, more affordable housing for more residents in San Antonio that need it. We need a lot more housing, and we're trying to provide that. And it may not always be through public housing, but it's through affordable housing and workforce housing. So I just want to make sure that these residents don't feel that they're coming here and we're not responding to their issues, or that we don't care about them, because I do care. And as long as I sit on this board, I will stand up for the residents. Now, if they're doing wrong or whatever we have to do to correct it, we need to do, and I support staff on that side also. I just would like to hear, I mean, we're hearing what a resident says, and he's making some serious accusations. And I would like to hear in closed session what has happened.
Absolutely.
So that we know. So when these things come to us, we have a better understanding. So I hope you understand that, Ed.
Right, absolutely.
And I'll go ahead and let you, and then I'll continue.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So a couple things. So I do, I know Firewatch is something that you and I have talked about, and I think it's come up before. I will tell you, I actually got to meet with Ms. Bowers, I think it was last week. So I have made a commitment that not only when I go out to the communities, I go out every week, but while I'm out there, it started where I was just going to, be there with the team. They have questions. I'm working, right? We know that, our office isn't just not here. I could do a lot of my work remotely, but I took it a step further. I said I wanted to talk and see with the residents. So they also knew that it's not just a commitment from our property staff, but you have Opportunity Home leadership that is actually listening. And so some of those concerns, and I address what they are and the differences, because there is a difference, and I recognize, right, when we see our security guards at our community, they're in the same type of uniform. So some may be where they're walking and there are security at night, and we do have that at Trent Casey, just like at several other properties, but we also have the same type of uniform in Firewatch. And so the Firewatch situation at Trent Casey is, as I think the board is fully aware, y'all approved our contract back in, I want to say December, where we were going to do a full elevator replacement of the two. But in the meantime, we had a large number of the fire department having to come because our elevators were stopping. And at the request of them and just being in more compliance, we had Firewatch. And so Firewatch has been there because of that. I'm pleased that Ms. Bowers did report, we haven't had as many problems, and that's good, but that's the reason why we do have Firewatch. Firewatch is separate from our security. We did have an unfortunate situation at Trent Casey several months ago that we had briefed the board on, and that because of concerns, we had for a certain period of time, we had additional security there, but that was because of some concerns that we were working through that we had fully briefed the board on. Since that situation has kind of faded away, we pulled that back because, and we will do the cost analysis. It does get costly, and when we're trying to look at our portfolio and look at all the needs of our portfolio, not just security, but just the capital needs of our things, we're balancing that. And that's oftentimes we bring that to y'all in the budget, and that's what we're recommending. So in that conversation with the residents at Trent Casey, they did recognize and they did appreciate, now we know the difference, which also stems to a lot of the conversations that I'm having with the residents when I'm out there at different properties is if it was communicated. And so that is what, Joel and his team, as well as Melissa and her team, that's the common trend. They're like, we know this, but it doesn't get all the way out. So we realize we have to do multiple different channels of communication. It's not just our resident meetings, but newsletters, because everything's different. Sometimes they may not be able to make that resident meeting because they have a doctor's appointment. So we want to make sure that what we put in place, everybody has that opportunity to kind of hear the same message. So we're working on that. We've been doing a lot around communication, and so the team understands that. But we did have that conversation, and we know that it's important to say, why is this person here? What are we doing? And so the next step is when we go back to them, it should be that hopefully the work will actually start on the elevators, and we told them we would keep them up to date on that. As Ed mentioned, and I know we'll have some continued conversations about what Mr. Hamilton mentioned about his First Amendment rights. I will right here tell you we are not violating any First Amendment rights, but he's also been a huge advocate when it comes to bullying. And there was something that had come to our attention that could reflect bullying. And so as working together with our tenants union, and in particular with Mr. Hamilton, Joel reached out and said, this is an example of what can be considered as bullying. We do not, and we will not restrict our residents or our board's First Amendment rights, but we know that oftentimes just as bringing it out where someone may be, what they're saying is, I don't want to be bullied, but their actions may be considered bullying. We feel like we have our due diligence. The board has approved our anti-bullying. We have not rolled that out, but we have been doing a lot of conversations and talks with our residents about it. And so that's where it is. But we will be more than happy to obviously provide you a little bit more background, as Ed mentioned. There have been several allegations from Mr. Hamilton about the resident council, and that has expanded over 2 to 3 years, so much that we've even, we've had meetings with HUD, everything's been reviewed, and they have all concluded that we have never violated. We are acting as Opportunity Home staff, we are acting in the best interest of all of our residents, and the votes on resident council and who sits on the resident council board is in the hands of the residents at those communities and not staff. And that's what we've done so far, and I will tell you that HUD agreed with the decisions based off of what they heard and how the residents responded.
I just want to make sure that we're not being the bullies either, so.
Absolutely.
And we might want to consider at our monthly meetings have a report from the tenants from each of the areas once a month, telling us something that's happening at their place of home. Some of the good things, some of the whatever. Because I think that if the tenants had an opportunity that they knew about, that we're receiving information from them, I think that would be very well received. And we hear from staff, but I think that the board getting to hear from the tenants in our board meetings just once, and work with the different organizations or whatever, so that they feel like they have a direct communication with us if it's needed. And I think that might be very welcome by the other board members, and I think that the tenants would like that. And if the other board members want to.
I think that's a great idea. We could start with having the resident councils, perhaps engaging them, and select one every month to come and report to the board. I think that's a great idea, Dr. Guzman.
I could also provide you summaries too of when I'm out at the communities, as well as some of the commitments, some of the conversations I have with the residents, as well as the resident council, and then how the team is responding to those, and just that communication. I think it is very beneficial.
And I think they could do that written form.
Absolutely.
But I think what's most important is for the residents to have the opportunity to come to the board meetings and to know that there is the possibility of communicating with us directly and not through staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, I'd like to take that a step further. I know we've spoken about this before, but before the year ends, I would like to take 1 or 2 of our board meetings to properties.
Yes.
If that's possible. I know it's been done in the past, and I would like to see that we go out to a couple of properties within this year and take our board meeting there. So that way, we can visit the property, we can see what's going on, we can hear what's going on, and we have time maybe on the site to speak with some of the residents and stuff. So I'd like to request that also, if we could set that up.
We'll work on setting that up. And perhaps the first property we may try is Victoria Plaza, because it's going to be opened now, and it may be a good place to go.
And that was the last place the board met outside of this room too, when they announced the rehab. So 2 more things. I'd like a report on the front keypad being installed at W.C. White. I was told a few months ago that it was approved, and I don't know what's going on with that.
So I'll have to look into it. Some of it is still supply chain issues that we're going through. We're doing it right now too at VP. It's the same situation. So, but I'll confirm with the team and look at that.
And then I have another issue. We fly our flag proudly on our properties and at this office. But as a veteran, I have an issue that when the president or the governor issues an order to fly our flags at half-staff, and we don't do it. Right now, our flag should be flying at half-staff till the 11th for the victims of Dallas, and I go into my property every day and the flag's at full staff. I mention it to the offices sometimes, and they say, well, we can't do it unless central office puts out an order for them to be lowered. So, I mean, if we're going to fly flags, we should follow the proper etiquette. And I think if the city's flying the flag at half-staff, I think our agency should be doing it too.
Absolutely. We definitely get better on that, and they should be able to do it. They don't need a message from us, and oftentimes we know that sometimes there are things out of the state or out from the president's office that sometimes we miss. So anytime that happens, we'll make sure we try to monitor it pretty quickly, but we'll make sure we get the communication out that if a resident mentions it, they just have to Google it and make sure that it should be at half-staff.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you.
On the security, sorry, Brandy, one, maybe I missed it, but not just necessarily the cost of adding guards, but camera monitoring, central, if you just include that in.
So we are actually bringing to the board, I want to say it's next week, yep, because we're actually bringing the contract for cameras, but that's not all of the properties. We're prioritizing, and then as well as we've been doing a lot of work around our lighting. So that is coming to the board next week.
Next week, operation, okay.
And then when we go over the budget, I think it would be a good idea to say, last year we had X many properties and we spent this amount, and then next year we have X, Y many properties and we're going to be spending that amount, and with the percentage increase. Because there are slow times and there are critical times, and I think we may be coming into critical times, and we may need to increase the budgets in some of the areas that we live in. And I think if there's anything that we owe our tenants, is for them to feel comfortable and safe where they live. I think that's a tenet that should be very high, and first in our list is for all of our tenants to feel comfortable and safe, that they don't have to worry about where they live.
Right. We agree, and that is one of our goals. Residents feel safe is the outcome we're looking for, and we'll include the information in our budget about the increases for next year.
Thank you.
So on the President's report, I would like to first say, and this is not listed, that we've received notification from city staff that they're going to recommend several awards for us on the second round of bond funding. So we're really excited about that. It's still preliminary, but that's the recommendation. City staff is going to be coming forward with a recommendation to City Council on that.
And I have been working on it.
And tomorrow, I believe, at the Housing Commission meeting, they're going to be discussing that. They've asked me to recuse myself since we are applying for funds, but if you have a chance to tune in to the webcast, feel free to do that. We also participated in the Walk for Autism, and this is exciting. I know I have family members, and probably most of us do, that are on the spectrum, and so this was a great way to show support for the families that are experiencing this and raising their children. We received 41 new housing stability vouchers from HUD, and these were a few housing authorities across the country received them. It's not a large quantity, but as you know, we have a large wait list, and everything helps.
Are we utilizing all of the vouchers that we have?
We have, the problem right now is for residents to find homes that will take vouchers. We have about 1,500 families that have vouchers that have been searching for homes, and they still can't find places to take them. So that's the biggest hurdle right now, Dr. Guzman.
Is there any way that we could work with identified areas where we could sweeten their ability to accept those vouchers? Because I mean, it's very frustrating to me, and I'm sure to the other board members, to know that we have these vouchers because of the needs that our community has, and yet we've not been able to provide the housing that those vouchers should allocate for those people. And the numbers seem to have grown, and so I think that we need to get some staff to kind of zero in on what are the kinds of things that we need to do to encourage more owners to accept our vouchers.
So the things we are doing, and Brandy can go into more detail here, but we held a landlord symposium where we tried to engage landlords. We're having lease-up fairs where we invite property managers that have vacant units to come meet our residents, and those are scheduled regularly. But in addition to that, last month we also increased the
Incentive.
the incentive for landlords. So anytime we get a new landlord, there's an incentive associated with that. So we're taking all of these steps to try to improve it. But this is a structural problem, and we're doing everything we can. The structural problem is that private landlords are moving away from vouchers, and they, in many cases, don't want voucher holders. So in the state of Texas, we cannot, there is no law that says you have to accept vouchers. It's source of income discrimination is occurring, and many landlords don't want voucher holders. So that's, I think, the biggest problem that many of our residents are facing that have vouchers and can't find homes. The other point I want to make is many individuals have jobs, and they just, there's a large number of homeless people at Haven for Hope that have jobs and have vouchers, and they still are having trouble finding places to locate them. And Brandy, do you want to add to what we're doing from a landlord standpoint?
Well, I was going to say, and we approved it today again. We passed it through on consent, but the incentive program is helpful. I just want to make sure, and this is probably more on you, Brandy, I guess, the outreach, because I recognize there's a lot of maybe smaller, not institutional landlords, but smaller landlords that have the 40, 60, 80 unit type of complex that maybe don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. They also then have to follow underneath our review, our guidelines that are HUD prescribed for inspections, but
So Ed touched on a lot of the work that we have been doing, and I think the incentive is going to launch, some of what we hear. I think the biggest other piece outside of what Ed mentioned is that we launched or relaunched our landlord work group that we had years ago, and wanted to re-engage them and have them come help us kind of come up with it, because it is the outreach, right? They're existing, but they also have a lot of friends in this community that say, this is the reasons why, and so they're working through, and some of that was the conversation about incentives. They're also looking at process improvement and where we can do, and so it's really utilizing our MTW flexibilities and trying to get much stronger on there. We've done a lot of creative things, but where else can we help make that partnership on the willingness of landlords to come back to our program and retain them, but at the same time making sure. And so we were just talking about, as Ed mentioned, the lease-up fair. And so we earlier this morning, I think it was probably my first meeting this morning with a group of individuals, Richard, Diana, and Sarah Eves. We were talking about how else can we expand that lease-up fair. It's not just having the landlords here, because that may not be the area that they want to live in or the type of home, but what else can we do on the navigation? And the city has some housing navigators, and so it's trying to build that stronger partnership, but maybe if we have invite them to our lease up fair, that they could help us too. So we're always strategizing to the point that we know we need them. We're always outside of just looking at what we can do. We're always looking at financial, right? Not just the landlord incentives, but our payment standards that we bring to the board on a regular basis. You know, is there a need to increase it? Knowing that the affordability keeps going up in San Antonio, and so making sure that we are staying in line. So we do all of that, and we're going to continue to do every effort to get our folks leased in units and really helping stabilize their housing.
There has to be a way that landlords benefit from having our tenants, and that we need to quantify and have it up front.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of education about that too. To your point, Dr. Guzman, it's about the benefits of the program, right? And it's that guaranteed dollar in their pocket. And we know that through our Section 8 program, we are putting a lot of money into this community. And so we've talked about that. We also are we partnered with the Apartment Association and SABRE to do like HCV 101 classes to say this is what the beauty of this program. But we also know that we have to build those relationships again, during COVID and during our staffing shortage, and continue. Even we may be fully staffed, but those staff are still learning that we still have an obligation to kind of help cushion that. So we're having those open conversations to gain back and retain our landlords.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So continuing with the report, we had two grand openings, one at Vista at Interpark and another at Frontera. Thank you, commissioners who were able to attend. The Girl Scouts visited Jewett Circle on the west side in order to plant vegetables around the community. So we really want to thank the Girl Scouts for coming out to help beautify the community. We held a shoebox contest for Fiesta Floats again this year, and several different departments competed for the prize, and some of the examples are shown there. We want to thank JW Crew for donating computer monitors, power cords, mice or mouses, whatever's the proper word, keyboards and surge protectors to us. Those will be used at Lincoln Heights and also our Connect Home program. And then we had 3 employees that were selected to receive Texas NARO awards. So congratulations to Victor Givens, Resident Service Coordinator, our maintenance supervisor, Michael Gray, and our admin specialist, Janie Espinosa. Thank you for your service and compassion in the community. And then we had 2 fundraising events during Fiesta on 2 different days. Thank you, board members, for attending. And finally, we had celebrations at many properties for Fiesta, and the residents and staff decorated the rooms and also had great food and enjoyed some dancing.
That's great. That's great.
That concludes the President's report.
Any other issues? Okay, I adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
It's 2:10.
Right.
This is a
It's up to you, Doug.
You can object if you want to, but I don't think anybody wants to.
This is a new record for us, sir.
I love them, but I can't have those.
This is a new record. Mr. Epcot, you've been getting in trouble lately.